Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you that I've always been fascinated by the way light plays through the leaves of our backyard oak tree, casting intricate patterns on the grass. It's a simple pleasure, one that I often find myself lost in, especially on days like today, when the weight of my thoughts feels too heavy to bear alone. My name is Luna, and from the outside my life might seem like a well-curated snapshot of suburban bliss. I work as a dental assistant, a job that allows me to bring smiles to others even when my own feels forced. My husband Arthur is a software developer, his mind always worrying with code and algorithms. Together with our golden retriever, Shadow, we've crafted a life that looks enviable from the outside. But as I sit here, the sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow over Arthur's hunched form, I can't shake the feeling of isolation. Arthur absorbed in his work, his fingers dancing over the keyboard, seems worlds away. The distance between us isn't just physical, it's emotional, a chasm that's been widening for months now. Our home, once a sanctuary of laughter and shared dreams, now echoes with a silence of unspoken words. Shadow, ever perceptive, senses the shift in the air. He moves from his usual spot by the fireplace to lay his head on my lap, his deep brown eyes looking up at me with a concern that's almost human. His warmth is comforting, yet it's not enough to dispel the chill that's settled in my heart. Arthur and I have been married for 7 years, 7 years of shared history, of building a life together. But somewhere along the way, the vibrancy of our connection has faded. Arthur's dedication to his work has always been admirable, but lately it's as if his job has become his mistress, demanding more of his time, his energy, his passion. I've tried to bridge the gap to pull him back into our shared reality, but every attempt feels like shouting into a void. He's here but not really here, and in these moments of solitude, surrounded by the trappings of our life together, I find myself grappling with a secret that could unravel everything we've built. It's not just the loneliness or the growing distance that plagues me. There's something else, a shadow lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. A secret I've kept buried not just from Arthur, but from myself. It's a truth that, if revealed, could shatter the fragile peace we've managed to maintain. I remember the day it started, not with a bang, but with a whisper, a chance encounter, a fleeting moment that changed everything. It was at a dental conference, one of those mundane professional gatherings where the highlight is usually the free pens. But there, amidst the banal chatter about the latest in dental technology, I met someone who saw through the veneer of my life, who made me feel seen in a way Arthur hadn't in years. This person, whose name I won't speak, became a confidant, a secret friend. Our conversations were innocent at first, but they grew into something more, something that felt dangerously like an escape. Each message, each stolen moment was a balm to my loneliness, but also a betrayal of the vows I made to Arthur. Now as I watch Arthur, his face illuminated by the screen's glow, I'm torn. The secret I harbor isn't just about an emotional affair. It's about the realization that the life I've been living might not be the one I truly want. It's about the fear of what would happen if Arthur found out, if the truth came spilling out like a dark, uncontainable flood. Shadow shifts his ears, parking up as if he can hear the turmoil within me. I stroke his fur, seeking solace in his simple, unconditional love. But even his loyalty can't shield me from the storm brewing inside. The secret isn't just mine. It's ours. Arthur's and mine, because it touches the very foundation of our marriage. It's about the choices we've made, the paths we've walked, and the unspoken agreements we've silently renewed with each passing day. And now, as I sit here, the weight of this secret feels like a millstone around my neck, pulling me down into depths I'm not sure I can escape from. The light outside has shifted. The patterns on the grass have changed. Time moves forward, indifferent to the turmoil in my heart. I know I can't keep this secret forever, not without it consuming me, not without it tearing apart the life we've built. But today, like every day, I choose silence, hoping against hope that somehow we can find our way back to each other before it's too late. The next morning I woke up with a sense of urgency, a need to break the monotony that had settled over our lives like a heavy fog. I turned to Arthur, who was already up, his eyes fixed on his laptop screen, his fingers tapping away at the keys. "Arthur," I began, my voice tentative, How about we take a break, just for the weekend? We could use the guest house. Remember how we always talked about making it our little retreat? Arthur looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and reluctance. I've got a lot on my plate, Luna, he said, his voice tinged with the exhaustion of endless deadlines. But seeing the hope in my eyes, he sighed. All right. Maybe it'll do us some good. We packed light, just the essentials. I made sure to include shadows, toys, and treats, hoping his playful spirit would inject some joy into our escape. The guest house, a quaint structure at the back of our property, had been neglected for too long. Its windows were dusty, the air inside stale, as if the place itself was holding its breath, waiting for life to return. I started by opening the windows, letting in the fresh air. The sunlight streamed in, casting light on the layers of dust that had settled everywhere. I grabbed a cloth and began wiping down surfaces, my movements brisk, trying to infuse the space with warmth and welcome. Arthur, however, seemed more interested in his phone, the incessant buzz of notifications pulling his attention away from our getaway. Frustration bubbled within me, but I pushed it down. I decided to set up a picnic outside, under the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. The grass was cool under my feet as I spread out the blanket, arranging our simple meal of sandwiches, fruit, and a bottle of wine. I hoped the beauty of the outdoors might lure Arthur away from his digital world shadow. Ever the eager companion bounded around the yard, his tail a blur of motion. His joy was infectious, and for a moment I allowed myself to be caught up in his simple happiness. I called out to Arthur, "Come on, let's enjoy this while we can." Arthur joined us, but his presence was half-hearted. He sat, his phone still in hand, his eyes occasionally lifting to meet mine before darting back to the screen. The divide between us felt palpable, almost as if it were another guest at our picnic. As the afternoon waned, I watched Shadow chase after a squirrel, his barks echoing through the quiet. I felt a pang of envy for his freedom, his ability to live in the moment. My thoughts wandered to the secret. I harbored the weight of it, pressing down on me here. In this peaceful setting, the contrast between the tranquility of our surroundings and the turmoil within me was stark. I poured us some wine, hoping it might soften the edges of our strained connection. "Arthur, can you put that away for a bit?" I asked, gesturing towards his phone. He complied, but his mind seemed elsewhere, his gaze distant. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. We ate in silence, the only sounds being the rustling leaves and Shadow's occasional panting. I tried to engage Arthur, to pull him into a conversation about anything other than work, but his responses were short, distracted. As night fell, we moved inside the guest house. Now somewhat livable, felt like a cocoon, isolating us from the world, yet highlighting our own isolation from each other. I lit some candles, their flickering light casting shadows that danced on the walls, mirroring the dance of my thoughts. Lying in bed with Arthur beside me, I stared at the ceiling, the silence between us louder than any words could be. I wondered if this getaway was a mistake, if it was merely highlighting the cracks in our relationship, rather than mending them. The question lingered in my mind, heavy and unresolved. Will this getaway bring us closer? Or will it reveal hidden tensions? As sleep eluded me, I realized that perhaps the answer was already unfolding in the quiet, in the spaces between us, in the unspoken words, and the secrets we kept. The evening sets in, and Arthur finally puts his phone away, joining me for dinner. We sit at the small round table in the guest house, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows on the walls. The food is simple, a casserole I prepared earlier, but the atmosphere is anything but our conversation feels forced, filled with awkward silences. I try to steer the talk towards lighter topics, memories of our past vacations, but each attempt seems to fall flat. Arthur's responses are polite yet distant, his mind clearly elsewhere. After dinner, he excuses himself to make some calls, leaving me alone with Shadow. The quiet of the guest house envelopes me, and the loneliness I've been fighting all day begins to seep in. I look at Shadow, his eyes reflecting the candlelight, and I feel a desperate need for some form of connection. I start playing with him more intensely, throwing sticks into the dimming light of the backyard, watching him chase after them with a vigor that momentarily lifts my spirits. We run around, the cool evening air brewing against my skin, the sounds of our laughter and shadows, excited barks filling the silence. But then in the heat of the moment, something unexpected happens in the dim light amidst the shadows and the quiet. I find myself in a situation that I never imagined possible. The details are murky, blurred by the confusion and the rush of adrenaline, but the realization hits me like a ton of bricks. I'm horrified, confused, and deeply ashamed. How could I let this happen? The guilt is overwhelming, and I'm left questioning everything about myself. I sit on the cold, damp grass, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Shadow, sensing my distress, comes over, nuzzling his head into my lap, his tail wagging slowly, as if trying to comfort me. But his touch now feels like a reminder of my lapse, a stark contrast to the warmth it usually brings. The night deepens, and the silence grows heavier. I hear Arthur's voice faintly through the walls, still on his calls. Oblivious to the turmoil in my heart, I stand up, feeling the weight of my actions pressing down on me. I need to do something, to say something, but the words stick in my throat. I walk back into the guest house, the candlelight now seeming more like a judgment than a comfort. I pour myself a glass of water, my hands trembling slightly as I lift it to my lips. The cool liquid does little to quench the dryness in my mouth, or the fire of my guilt. Arthur returns, his face tired but somewhat relieved, perhaps from the distraction of work. He looks at me, his eyes searching mine, perhaps sensing a shift in the air. "Everything okay?" he asks, his voice tinged with concern. I nod, unable to speak, the lie heavy on my tongue, just tired. I manage to say, turning away to hide the tears that threat to spill. We prepare for bed in silence, the space between us feeling like a chasm. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the shadows from the candlelight dancing like my thoughts. The secret I've harbored about the emotional affair feels like a small thing now compared to what has just transpired. As the night wears on, I realize that this secret, this new burden, could unravel everything we've built. But the question that haunts me, that keeps sleep at bay, is not just about what I've done, but what I will do now. What will Luna do now that her secret is out? The morning light does little to ease the turmoil inside me. I wake up before Arthur, the guest house, still cloaked in the early morning mist. I slip out of bed, careful not to wake him, and step outside. The air is crisp, the grass wet with dew, and the world seems to hold its breath, waiting for my next move. I sit on the porch, Shadow by my side, his head resting on my knee. I stroke his fur, seeking solace in his simple, unconditional love. But even his loyalty can't shield me from the storm brewing inside. The secret isn't just mine, it's ours. Arthur's and mine, because it touches the very foundation of our marriage. It's about the choices we've made, the paths we've walked, and the unspoken agreements we've silently renewed with each passing day. And now, as I sit here, the weight of this secret feels like a millstone around my neck, pulling me down into depths I'm not sure I can escape from. I need to confront this, to address what has happened. But how the thought of confessing to Arthur, of seeing the look of betrayal and confusion in his eyes, makes my stomach churn. Yet keeping this hidden, letting it fester, feels like a betrayal of another kind. I decide to start with myself, to understand what led me here. I need to find clarity, to sort through the mess of emotions and guilt. Maybe, just maybe, if I can understand myself, I can find a way to explain it to Arthur, to salvage something from this wreckage. I stand, resolve hardening within me. I'll take a walk alone to clear my head. Shadow watches me, his eyes full of concern, but I leave him behind, needing this solitude. As I walk, the path ahead seems as uncertain as my future. The trees whisper secrets of their own, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. I think about the life I've been living, the life I've been pretending to live, and the life I might want. The walk leads me to a small clearing where the morning sun breaks through the canopy, casting a warm glow on the ground. Here in this quiet space, I sit down, my back against an old oak, its bark rough against my skin. I close my eyes, letting the tranquility of the moment wash over me. I need to find the courage to face Arthur, to face myself. The path forward isn't clear, but one thing is certain: I can't keep running from the truth. The silence of the forest, the steady beat of my heart, and the distant calls of birds become my companions as I sit pondering the next steps. The secret, once a whisper, now demands to be heard, to be dealt with. And so, with the morning sun climbing higher, I make a decision. I will tell Arthur not today, perhaps not tomorrow. But soon I will find the words, the right moment to lay bare the truth of my heart, of my actions. The journey back to the guest house feels different. Each step heavier with purpose. I know the road ahead will be fraught with pain, with potential loss, but also perhaps with the possibility of redemption, of understanding, of a new beginning. As I approach the house, I see Arthur through the window, his face now free of the glow from his laptop. Looking out into the morning light, he looks up. Our eyes meet. And in that moment I see a flicker of the man I fell in love with, the man I've been trying to reach for so long. I take a deep breath, the weight of my decision, settling in. The path to reconciliation, to confession, to whatever comes next starts now. The next morning I'm a bundle of nerves. The weight of my secret feels like a physical burden pressing down on my C********, making it hard to breathe. Arthur, oblivious to the turmoil inside me, seems in a better mood, perhaps relieved from the works, stress that's been shadowing him for weeks. He suggests we go for a walk, and I agree, hoping the fresh air might clear my mind, might give me the courage I need. As we walk, the morning dew still clinging to the grass, I'm silent, lost in my thoughts. The path we take winds through the woods, the trees whispering secrets of their own. Arthur tries to engage me, his voice a gentle prod. You've been quiet. Luna, what's on your mind? But I'm distant, my mind, replaying the events of the previous night. The confusion, the shame, the unexpected turn of events. Each step feels heavier, as if I'm walking through mud. Each word I could say stuck in my throat. The silence between us grows, filled only by the sounds of our footsteps and the occasional bird call. Arthur, sensing my distress, reaches for my hand, his touch warm but distant. I want to pull away, to retreat into my own turmoil, but I let him hold it, feeling the contrast between his calm and my storm. We return to the guest house, and Arthur, noticing my distress, asks if everything is okay. His eyes search mine, looking for answers I'm not ready to give. I'm on the verge of confessing, the words teetering on the edge of my lips, but fear grips me, a cold hand around my heart. Instead I feign a headache, a weak excuse to escape the intensity of his gaze. I think I need to lie down, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. Arthur looks puzzled, his concern evident. Sure, rest up, I'll be here if you need anything, he says, his voice filled with a kindness that makes my heart ache more. I retreat to the bedroom, the door closing behind me like a barrier between my secret and the world lying on the bed. The room feels too small, the walls too close. My thoughts are a whirlwind, a storm of guilt, confusion and fear. I replay the moment with shadow, the unexpected, the inexplicable. How could I let it happen? The question haunts me, echoing in the silence of the room. I hear Arthur moving around in the living area, his footsteps a reminder of the life we've built, of the love we once shared so freely. The love that now feels like a fragile glass ready to shatter with the truth. I want to tell him to unburden myself, but the fear of losing him, of losing us, is paralyzing. The morning light filters through the curtains, casting a soft glow that feels at odds with the darkness inside me. I close my eyes, trying to find solace in the darkness behind my lids. But the images from last night are vivid, relentless. I need to confront this, to address what has happened. But how? The thought of confessing to Arthur, of seeing the look of betrayal and confusion in his eyes, makes my stomach churn. Yet keeping this hidden, letting it fester, feels like a betrayal of another kind. I decide to start with myself, to understand what led me here. I need to find clarity, to sort through the mess of emotions and guilt. Maybe, just maybe, if I can understand myself, I can find a way to explain it to Arthur, to salvage something from this wreckage. I stand, resolve hardening within me. I'll take a walk alone to clear my head. Shadow watches me, his eyes full of concern, but I leave him behind, needing this solitude. As I walk, the path ahead seems as uncertain as my future. The trees whisper secrets of their own, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. I think about the life I've been living, the life I've been pretending to live, and the life I might want. The walk leads me to a small clearing where the morning sun breaks through the canopy, casting a warm glow on the ground. Here, in this quiet space, I sit down, my back against an old oak, its bark rough against my skin. I close my eyes, letting the tranquility of the moment wash over me. I need to find the courage to face Arthur, to face myself. The path forward isn't clear. But one thing is certain. I can't keep running from the truth. The silence of the forest, the steady beat of my heart, and the distant calls of birds become my companions as I sit pondering the next steps. The secret, once a whisper now, demands to be heard, to be dealt with. And so, with the morning sun climbing higher, I make a decision. I will tell Arthur, not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but soon I will find the words, the right moment to lay bare the truth of my heart, of my actions. The journey back to the guest house feels different each step, heavier with purpose. I know the road ahead will be fraught with pain, with potential loss, but also perhaps with the possibility of redemption, of understanding, of a new beginning. As I approach the house, I see Arthur through the window, his face now free of the glow from his laptop. Looking out into the morning light, he looks up. Our eyes meet. And in that moment I see a flicker of the man I fell in love with, the man I've been trying to reach for so long. I take a deep breath, the weight of my decision settling in. The path to reconciliation, to confession, to whatever comes next starts. Now the question lingers, heavy and unresolved. Will Luna's secret remain hidden? Or will it explode into the open that night? Unable to bear the weight of my secret alone, I decide to confront it. I tell Arthur I need to talk, my voice trembling. We sit in the dimly lit living room of the guest house, the atmosphere tense. I start to explain, my words faltering, tears streaming down my face. Arthur's expression shifts from confusion to shock, then to disbelief. The air between us becomes thick with tension. He stands up, pacing, his face a mask of hurt and betrayal. How could you? He whispers, his voice breaking. The confrontation escalates, words are thrown like daggers, and the once quiet guest house echoes with our pain. Arthur, overwhelmed, storms out, leaving me alone with my guilt and shadow, who looks at me with his innocent eyes, unaware of the storm he's inadvertently caused. I sit there, the silence now deafening the candlelight, casting long shadows that seem to mock my solitude. The truth, once a whisper, now roars in the emptiness of the room. I feel the walls closing and the weight of my actions pressing down on me like a physical force. I replay the moment with shadow in my mind, trying to understand how it could have happened, how I could have let it happen. The confusion and shame are overwhelming. But amidst the turmoil, a clarity begins to form. I realize that this isn't just about the incident with Shadow. It's about the emotional affair, about the growing distance between Arthur and me, about the life we've been living versus the one I've been yearning for. The night deepens, and I hear the distant sound of Arthur's footsteps returning. My heart races. Not knowing what to expect, he enters, his face a mixture of anger and sorrow. He sits down opposite me, his eyes avoiding mine. I need to understand, Luna, he says, his voice strained. What led you to this? I take a deep breath, the words I've been holding back now, fighting to escape. It's not just about what happened tonight, Arthur. It's about us, about how we've drifted apart. I felt alone and I sought connection elsewhere, not physically but emotionally. And tonight, it was a culmination of that isolation, that confusion. Arthur listens, his face unreadable. The silence stretches, filled only by the soft panting of Shadow at my feet, his head now resting on my lap as if to offer comfort. You've been unhappy, Arthur finally says, not as a question, but as a statement. Why didn't you tell me? I reply, my voice barely above a whisper. But you were always so absorbed in your work, and I didn't want to burden you with my feelings when you seemed so content with your own world. Arthur's gaze finally meets mine, and I see the pain there, the realization of what we've both missed. I thought I was doing what was best for us, he says, his voice cracking. I thought providing for us, focusing on my career was what you wanted. But what about us, Arthur? I ask, the question hanging heavy in the air. What about our connection, our life together? The room feels smaller, the shadows longer as we sit in the aftermath of our confessions. The guest house, meant to be our sanctuary, has become the stage for our unraveling. I don't know if I can forgive this, Arthur admits, his voice low, almost lost in the quiet. But I want to try, for us, for what we've built. His words, though filled with uncertainty, offer a sliver of hope. We sit in silence, the weight of our future uncertain. the path forward obscured by the shadows of our past mistakes. As the night wears on, we talk more not about the incident, but about our feelings, our fears, our dreams. It's painful, raw, but necessary. We discuss counseling, time apart to reflect, and the possibility of rebuilding. The question remains like a ghost in the room. Can their marriage survive this betrayal? The morning light eventually finds its way through the curtains, casting a new day's glow on our faces. Weary from the night's revelations, we look at each other not with the same eyes as before, but with a new understanding, a fragile hope that perhaps, just perhaps, we can find our way back to each other. But the journey ahead is daunting, filled with potential pitfalls and the ever-present shadow of doubt. Yet as we stand to face the day, there's a silent agreement to try to not let this be the end, but perhaps a painful beginning of something new, something real. The path to reconciliation, to confession, to whatever comes next, starts now, and as we step out into the morning light, the future uncertain, I hold on to the hope that our love, though tested, might just be strong enough to weather the storm. In the days that follow, our home is a battlefield of silence and cold exchanges. Arthur moves to the guest house, unable to look at me. I'm left with Shadow, who remains my only comfort, yet a constant reminder of my mistake. The silence between us is deafening, each room echoing with the absence of our once shared laughter. Arthur's presence in the guest house feels like a physical barrier, a tangible representation of the emotional walls we've built. I walk through our home, each step heavy with the weight of my guilt, the walls seeming to close and whispering the secrets I've kept. I seek therapy, trying to understand my actions to find some semblance of peace. The therapist's office becomes my sanctuary, a place where I can unravel the tangled threads of my emotions without fear of judgment. I talk about my loneliness, the emotional affair, and the incident with Shadow, each word a step towards understanding myself. Arthur 3 starts counseling, grappling with his feelings of betrayal and confusion. He's seeking answers, trying to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the one who's emerged from the shadows of our marriage. His sessions are a journey through pain, a quest to find forgiveness, or at least a way to coexist with the truth. Months pass and slowly we begin to talk again, not about the incident but about life, about our future. It's a fragile bridge. We're building one that might never fully heal. Our conversations are cautious, filled with pauses and careful words. We discuss mundane things at first, like the weather, the garden, anything to avoid the elephant in the room. But with time we venture into deeper waters, discussing our dreams, our fears, and the possibility of moving forward. Shadow, now older, watches us with his wise eyes, perhaps understanding more than we give him credit for. He's a silent observer, his presence a reminder of the innocence we've lost, yet also a symbol of the unconditional love that still exists between us. His tale wages less frequently now, but when it does, it's with a gentle, knowing motion, as if he's encouraging us to find our way back to each other. Our relationship has changed irrevocably, but there's a new understanding, a new respect for the complexities of human emotions and connections. We've both learned that love isn't just about the good times. It's about navigating the storms, about the hard work of forgiveness and rebuilding. I start to see Arthur in a new light, not just as my husband, but as a man who's also been hurt, who's also trying to find his footing in this new reality. He in turn sees me not as the betrayed, but as someone who's lost her way, someone who's seeking redemption. We decide to take small steps. We plan dinners together, not in the guest house but in our home, where we can slowly reclaim the space we once shared. The first few are awkward, the air thick with unspoken words. But as time goes on, we find a rhythm, a new normal that's different from before, but has its own rhythm. One evening, as we sit at the dinner table, the silence isn't as oppressive. Arthur looks at me, his eyes softer than they've been in months. I've been thinking. He starts his voice, tentative about what we could do together to rebuild. I nod, feeling a cautious hope. I've been thinking too. Maybe we could start with something simple, like a weekend trip, just us, no distractions. He smiles, a small, genuine smile, and it feels like a breakthrough. I'd like that, he says. And for a moment the weight of our past seems lighter. We plan the trip, choosing a place. Neither of us has been a cabin, by a lake surrounded by nature. It's a symbol of our attempt to start anew, to find peace in each other's company, away from the echoes of our home. The night before we leave, I sit with Shadow, his head in my lap, his eyes looking up at me with that knowing gaze. We're going to try, boy, I whisper, stroking his fur for all of us. The drive to the cabin is quiet, but not uncomfortably so. We listen to music, share small smiles. And for the first time in a long while, I feel like we're moving forward, not just existing in the shadow of our past. At the cabin, the air is fresh, the lake serene. We unpack, setting up our space. And as we do, we talk more freely. We share stories of our childhood's dreams we've forgotten, and slowly the barriers begin to crumble. One evening, as we sit by the fire, Arthur takes my hand. I'm not saying it's easy, Luna, he says, his voice steady, but I want to understand, to forgive, to move past. This tears well up in my eyes, not from sadness, but from a relief I hadn't dared to hope for. I want that too, Arthur, more than anything. We sit there, hand in hand, watching the flames dance, feeling the warmth not just from the fire, but from the tentative rekindling of our connection. The question remains like a ghost in the room. Will they find a way to move forward together? Or will this be the end of their journey as a couple? But for now, in this moment, we're trying, and that's all we can do. As the night deepens, we decide to take a walk by the lake. The moonlight casting a silver path on the water. Shadow follows his steps, slow but steady, his presence a comforting constant in our changing world. We walk in silence, the only sounds, the gentle lapping of water against the shore, and the occasional hoot of an owl. It's peaceful, and in this peace I feel a flicker of hope, a possibility that maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back to each other, not as we were, but as we might become. The path to reconciliation, to confession, to whatever comes next continues each step forward, a testament to our willingness to try to not let this be the end, but perhaps a painful beginning of something new, something real. And as we stand there looking out over the lake, the future uncertain, I hold on to the hope that our love, though tested, might just be strong enough to weather this storm. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.